The biggest mistake of my life was marrying him. That's how my marriage ended, right there, in her parents' backyard, between the smell of ribs and cheap beer. 30 people froze. Some laughed, thinking she was joking. But she wasn't. Her words hit harder than a punch. They burned through 5 years of silence like a match dropped on dry grass. And as the laughter faded, something in me finally broke free. I looked at her, calm, steady, done, and said, "Me too, so I'm ending it." You could have heard a pin drop. The whole yard went quiet. No yelling, no scene, just the sound of truth landing heavier than any fist. That was the moment I stopped being her husband and started being a man again. If you've ever hit your breaking point, stick around, subscribe, because what came next changed everything. Nobody moved. You could hear nothing but breath and heat. A chair leg scraped the deck, slow, ugly. Jake pushed up like a guard dog, jaw tight, ready to make me the problem. Frank's hand clamped his shoulder. "Sit," he said, voice low enough to carry. Silverware tapped ceramic. A beer can hissed open and nobody drank. Emily forced a laugh that didn't reach her eyes. "Relax, I was joking." The word hung there, thin as a paper napkin in the wind. Joking. The kind of word people use when they want a free pass after they land the punch. I kept my eyes on her. No blinking, no heat. Just the steady feeling of a door closing in my chest. The backyard kept breathing, flag chains clicking on the porch, a kid's laugh from the side yard, a dog collar jingling 2 houses down, life acting normal while mine changed shape. Someone coughed. Someone else whispered, "She didn't mean it." But we all knew better. We all heard the tone, pride, contempt. A match lit and dropped. I set my plate down and spoke so plain nobody could pretend they misheard. "Neither of us is joking." The deck went quiet. And if you're wondering how it got this far, you're not alone. I'll tell you, but first you need to know what I put into us. 5 years sounds short until you stack the days. Rent due, tires bald, tuition drafts that hit at 2 a.m. like gut punches. I carried them gladly. I believed in her white coat the way some men believe in Sundays. I paid lab fees, bought used textbooks that smelled like coffee and fear, fixed the Honda in a parking lot while she memorized bone names under a streetlight. Nights were long, fluorescents, vending machine dinners, my email open while she finished charts in a hospital that never slept. I learned the rhythm. Heat leftovers at 10, keep them warm till midnight, kiss her forehead at 1, set the alarm for 6. I was proud of that rhythm. It felt like building a house you can't see yet. There were small moments I kept like coins in a jar, her head on my shoulder, a post-it that said thank you, a smile over cheap pizza at the end of a brutal week. And when the jar got light, I told myself it was just a season. Storms pass, people grow. We'll catch our breath and laugh about this someday. I took the overtime, I took the hits, I took the weight so she could rise. And I said the truest thing I know. I believed in us more than in myself. That's the part nobody saw at the BBQ, but it matters for what comes next. It started with a simple habit. Close the laptop when you're done. That night, she didn't. The screen glowed in a dark room like a clean hospital light. Messages stacked in a neat column. Derek, the study partner. Orthopedic terms at the top. Scaphoid, labrum, range of motion. Then the sentences loosened. The tone warmed. The words slid from sterile to skin. I scrolled and watched 2 languages weave. Clinical for the bones, carnal for the bodies. Notes about rounds and residents, then late-night jokes, then something you don't mistake for friendship. There's a kind of honesty to lust. It doesn't use big words. It just names what it wants. My chest felt hollow and loud at the same time. The kind of empty that echoes. I shut the laptop and sat with it. The truth, the shame, the ache you feel in your teeth. She cried when I brought it up. Promised it was over, swore it was stupid, said she'd been lonely. I believed her. Or I wanted to believe her so badly that it felt like the same thing. I forgave. I told myself good men forgive, and strong marriages survive storms. I learned the hard rule no man forgets. Forgiveness turned into permission, and once it turns, it doesn't turn back. Back to the backyard. Heat thick as a blanket. Cicadas grinding in the trees like gears that don't quit. Linda tried to smooth it over, hands raised, voice sugar soft. Honey, we all say things we don't mean. The table sat frozen, napkins crumpled, knives laid down, eyes bouncing from her to me like a tennis match nobody asked to watch. I felt nothing dramatic, no rage, no tremor, just a clear, clean line inside me, the kind you don't cross once you finally see it. Emily stared back, jaw set, half daring me to fold, half praying I would. Pride makes strange prayers. Someone muttered, "Come on, it was a joke." That word again, joke. The bandage people slap on a cut they don't want to look at. The flag clinked its chain against the porch. A kid somewhere kept laughing. Life kept going. That was the oddest part. Normal sounds rubbing against a moment that wasn't normal at all. I cleared my throat so I wouldn't have to raise my voice. No speech, no fireworks. Just the truth set down like a tool you're finished with. I'm simply agreeing with her assessment. Understatement cuts cleaner than shouting. The air changed. Faces did too. And if you think I came here to pick a fight, you've got it backward. I came to stop one I'd been losing for years. Emily tried the soft exit. I was kidding, she said, lips tight, eyes scanning for allies. I kept mine on her. Were you? The words came out level, like a carpenter checking a bubble. No wobble, no give. You know how it is. Stress, work. No, I said. I know how it is when someone rehearses the same line for months. Heads tilted, eyes shifted. You could feel the table recalculating. People remember tones more than words, and they'd heard hers before. Little digs at Christmas, snide remarks over Easter ham, the kind of slow drip that rots the joists. Lindsay's phone stayed up, half hidden behind a Solo cup, the red plastic catching the sun. She tried to pretend she wasn't filming. Everyone tries to pretend something. Look, Emily said, the smile pulled too tight. We're just messing around. I shook my head. Messing around is teasing. This? I held her stare. This is contempt dressed as humor. She blinked hard. The air changed pitch. Forks went quiet, breaths got shallow. Frank looked at me, Linda looked at her. People pick sides long before they say so. They just don't know it until someone names the game. I set my hands flat on the table. This is how you've treated our marriage. The word marriage landed like weight, and right then, nobody could claim they didn't understand. Jake stood up like a storm breaking. You don't talk to my sister like that. Big shoulders, hot breath, that twitchy energy men get when they think force is the answer. His hand came down on my shoulder, heavy, testing. I didn't turn. I didn't rise. Frank's voice cut through, steady as a level line. Sit. Not a request. A command passed father to son, the kind that reminds a house who built it. Jake froze, then hovered, then slowly backed down, muscle by muscle. I reached for the beer without taking my eyes off Emily. Cold metal, thin skin. My thumb found the seam and pressed. The can gave a little. I pressed harder. A small, mean sound cracked the air, sharp, clean, final. You know it when aluminum surrenders. Her face changed. Not fear, recognition. The look people get when they finally understand you're not bluffing. Around us, the backyard kept pretending it was a normal Sunday. Wind in the flag, a kid asking for another hot dog. But the table knew different. Respect has a sound. Sometimes it's quiet. Sometimes it's a can breaking under a man who won't. Jake mumbled something about out of line. I didn't bite. I kept my voice low. Nobody's swinging here. I set the crushed can down. Flat. Done. I still hadn't stood up. I didn't need to. The line had already been drawn. Ray cleared his throat, the way older men do when they're trying to keep peace. Every couple hits rough patches, he said. Kind eyes, good heart, meaning well. A fork tapped a plate, once, twice, tiny metal ticks no one wanted to claim. The flag on the porch chain tapped too, wind nudging it like a nervous habit. I nodded to him. I hear you, Ray, but this isn't that. Rough patches are storms. They come, they pass, you mop the floor, you talk, you fix, you build. What we had wasn't a storm, it was a leak. Slow, steady, rotting joists you can't see until your foot goes through the kitchen. Not a patch, a pattern. Emily tried to jump in. "You're twisting it." But the table was listening now. Even the cicadas sounded like a chorus keeping time. Pattern, not patch. Pattern, not patch. The words felt right in my mouth, like measurements that finally line up with the cut. "I showed up," I said, calm. "I carried the weight." And every week I got the same message, said a dozen different ways. I was the mistake. Another fork tick, another pull of wind on the flag. "This isn't a rough patch," I said, laying it down for good. "It's a pattern." And you could feel the backyard tilt, just a little, toward the truth. The thing about patterns is they leave threads. You tug one, the whole thing shifts. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't look away from her. "Since we're telling the truth," I said, "let's tell the truth." Her smile thinned. Linda exhaled through her nose, one of those short, careful breaths mothers use when they sense bad news. Eyes moved between us like a porch light flicking on and off. "Tell them about Derek." A name can weigh more than a sentence. The table sagged a little. Emily's face did that quick calculation. Deny, minimize, deflect. She picked just friends, the oldest card in the deck. "We're friends from the program. He checks in on Instagram, that's all." "Right," I said. The late night DMs, the just proud of you with the hearts, the little jokes that got warmer after midnight, the wish you were here that wasn't about a conference." Lindsay's phone lowered an inch. Jake's jaw worked. Frank stared at the wood grain like it could give him a better answer. "It wasn't physical," she said fast. "There's more than one way to cheat," I answered. "You kept the door propped open. You kept me outside." Linda's eyes watered. Not for me, not yet. Just for the shape of what she was hearing. The yard went quiet enough to hear the ice melt in a glass. "Tell them about Derek," I said again. This time, nobody rushed to rescue her. Patterns leave receipts. I didn't bring a lawyer to the barbecue, just memory and a tidy mind. "You want truth?" I said. "Here's a kind you can touch." Tuition. I named the numbers like mile markers, spring semesters, summer intensives, lab fees that hit when we were already thin, rent during rotations, groceries on a credit card I paid off in the dark while she slept for the next shift, the car title I signed when her Honda died, so she didn't have to take the bus to clinic, mortgage payments when the hospital finally hired her and the checks started coming with her name on them. Her chin lifted, stubborn. "I've outgrown you." The table twitched like it felt that line in the legs. Outgrown. As if I were a shoe she wore out walking to her success. I didn't raise my voice. I raised the math. Outgrew the man who funded the climb. I tapped the list with a finger so steady it scared me. Didn't realize tuition was a prison. It landed. But numbers were just the surface. I had something deeper. Proof. And proof changes everything. A couple chairs shifted. Linda stared at her napkin. Jake popped his jaw. Ray looked exhausted in that way good men do when pride turns blind. Emily tried a smirk, then lost it halfway. "I didn't do this to own you," I said. "I did it to build us, And that's when I realized she never saw the difference. Proof comes in different forms. Sometimes it's numbers. Sometimes it's sound. Money is one language. Tone is another. I kept it there. Cool, level, then reached for the third. "There's something else," I said. "Since we're calling things what they are." Her eyes jumped to my phone before my hand did. Guilt knows where the evidence lives. I slid it out, screen waking to a thumbnail she knew too well. A voice note. Time-stamped. After midnight, 2 months back. Frank's shoulders slipped like air leaving a tire. Jake stared at me like daring me to push the button. Lindsay's phone finally dropped to the table, red cup forgotten. I didn't hit play. I just let the silence introduce it. The backyard went small and tight. Gnats hovered in the light like static. Somewhere, ice cracked in a glass. "I married too early," her voice had said that night. "Drunk on freedom, or attention, or both. I don't know who I'd be without him, and I hate that I need him." Not rage, contempt in sweatpants. Emily's mouth went dry. "Don't," she whispered. "Please." I kept my thumb off the triangle. "I don't need to," I said. "We both know what it says. They will too, if I press it." I looked at Frank, then back at her. "Want me to play it?" The question did the job the audio would have done. And for once, she had nothing to say. After the silence and the proof, nobody argued. They just got restless with their hands, folding napkins that didn't need folding, straightening forks that were already straight. Lindsay finally killed her recording, screen going dark like a curtain drop. Emily tried to gather words and kept losing them. "You're twisting. I didn't..." Her voice kept tripping over itself. Pride has a stutter when it's cornered. I took a slow sip of beer to keep my tone level. "This isn't about winning an argument," I said. "It's about dignity." Heads tilted, but nobody met my eyes for long. They didn't have to. They already knew what they'd heard the last few holidays, the last few Sunday dinners, the last few slips that weren't slips at all. Frank looked old in a way I'd never seen. Linda rubbed the edge of her plate like she could polish the moment away. Jake muttered something about stress, then swallowed it when no one joined him. Emily reached across the distance with a brittle smile. "Can we not do this here?" "We already did," I said. "You did it when you said what you said." I set the can down and rested my hands flat, the way you steady a table that wobbles. "I won't keep living as the punchline to your pride." I let the last 5 years narrow to a single truth. I'm done living without respect. And the backyard knew the conversation was over. The drive back should have taken 12 minutes. It felt longer. The steering wheel was tacky with sweat. My hands wouldn't dry no matter how many times I wiped them on my jeans. The radio stayed off. Even the fan sounded loud, pushing warm air that smelled like charcoal and summer grass. Porch lights flicked past like slow blinks from a tired town. Street by street, my body came down from the edge, heart rate dropping, thoughts lining up like trucks at a red light. I replayed her words, then mine, and realized I wasn't trying to sharpen them anymore. I wasn't hunting for better comebacks. The fight had ended hours, maybe years, before anyone noticed. At a stop sign, I stared straight through my reflection in the glass. A man looked back who wasn't angry, just finished. There's a relief that isn't joy. It's the weight slipping without a sound. I pulled into the driveway and killed the engine. The house sat there like a closed book. No porch light, no movement. Just the quiet that follows a storm you didn't cause and finally stopped standing in. I didn't text, didn't call, didn't plan the next swing. I let the silence carry what words couldn't without making it worse. Sometimes silence is mercy. The house greeted me with nothing. No light, no music, no apology running down the hall. Just that thin blue glow from the fridge when I opened it and grabbed a bottle of water I didn't want. Emily stood in the doorway, arms folded, eyes bright with fury and fear in equal parts. "You humiliated me," she said. "You did that," I answered. "I just stopped pretending." She yanked the ring off like it burned. It hit the kitchen table, metal on wood, a clean little clink that sounded bigger than it should have. Some sounds don't need volume, they carry weight. She waited for me to panic, to scramble, to apologize. I didn't. I picked the ring up, turned it once between my fingers, then set it down carefully, like a tool I was finished using. The light from the fridge made a cold halo around it. "This marriage isn't dead," she said. "You're overreacting." I shook my head. "No, I've just stopped lying to myself." Her mouth twitched. "So that's it? You're done?" "I'm not ending anything that wasn't already over," I said, voice steady. "I'm naming it." I slid the ring toward her side of the table. I buried a lie. The fridge hummed. The house held its breath. And for the first time in years, I felt the ground under my feet instead of the floor giving way. She started to spin a speech. Stress, long hours, no one understands. I pulled my phone instead. The screen lit my hands like a small confession booth. "You want to talk truth?" I said. "Let's itemize." Notes app. 3 dates, simple as receipts. March 15th, I read. "You told your sister, 'Marriage is harder than med school.' You laughed when she asked why you married me." Emily's chin lifted. "You're twisting." April 3rd, I went on. "To a coworker. He's too clingy. I need space. Maybe I need options." Her shoulders tightened, eyes flashing at the word options like it betrayed her. April 22nd, I said, finding the line I knew by heart. "Sometimes I feel trapped. If I were single, I'd be further by now." Stop, she snapped, voice cracking. Just stop. I stopped reading. I didn't put the phone away. I let the quiet sit with us, thick as humidity before a storm. She stared at the screen like it was a mirror that refused to flatter. This isn't monitoring, I said, finally looking up. This is memory. I kept track because I needed to know I wasn't imagining it. Her breath hitched. The kitchen felt smaller, truer. I don't have to win this argument, I said. I just have to respect what's real. I held her eyes so she couldn't dodge the line. I've been listening. She regrouped fast, like she'd practiced the speech in her head. You don't get what it takes to succeed, she said, chin high. Chin. Late nights, pressure, the standards. I worked for this. I earned this. Words came sharp, polished, heavy with the shine she'd been chasing. I let her run the list. Titles, conferences, a raise, the clinic liking her numbers. The room kept time with a cheap wall clock, tick, 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 each second scraping the nerves clean. Her hand shook just enough to make the light jump on the ring she'd thrown down. The shadow on the wall stretched long and thin behind her, like pride standing on tiptoe. I supported all of it, I said. But somewhere along the way, you quit supporting us. She rolled her eyes. Us? I'm finally becoming who I'm supposed to be. At the cost of who? I asked. Because I don't recognize the woman who mocks the man who built the ramp she's standing on. She scoffed. You wouldn't understand success. I nodded once. I understand trade-offs. Her throat worked. She didn't like that word. No one does when they start counting what they paid. I drew the line that had been begging to be said. If success means losing your soul, congrats. The clock didn't argue. Neither did the truth sitting between us. Her mouth kept moving, but the debate felt done. I opened the drawer where we keep important things. Passports, warranties, the deeds you never read till you have to, and set a thin folder on the table. Manila, neat, no drama, just the record. She stared like it might bite. What is that? Travis County paperwork, I said. Dates, signatures, the map out. Her face tightened. You filed? I flipped it open. Consults, drafts, the petition ready to send. I slid pages forward. Mortgage statements. Every month I covered when the clinic was slow, every extra principal payment when it wasn't. Bank statements showing who carried what. A polite letter from my 401k custodian. Timestamps proving what was mine before the wedding, what grew after. Student loan statements with my name on the checks. I didn't raise my voice. I raised the facts. This is insane, she said, breath thin. You've been planning. I met her eyes. No, I've been preparing. For what? For the thing that keeps happening, I said. For the end we both knew was coming if nothing changed. The house felt smaller, like the walls leaned in to hear. I closed the folder with 2 fingers. I prepared for the inevitable. There it was, 5 quiet words that turned the whole room. Paper doesn't care about pride, ink doesn't blink, and numbers don't lie to make you feel better. She pointed at the folder like it was a weapon. You're threatening me. I shook my head. I'm protecting myself. Her eyes went sharp, then wet, then sharp again. This is manipulation. I met her stare and let my pulse settle. Nothing racing, nothing shaky, just that steady drum men trust when the noise gets loud. 2 seconds of quiet hung there, long enough for the house to hear its own hum. You want me to stay, I said, in a story where I don't matter unless I pay the bill. You want me quiet, useful, and grateful for being ignored. That's not fair, she snapped. Fair? I leaned in just enough to keep it honest. Fair would have been respect while I was carrying the load. Fair would have been shutting the door on Derek. Fair would have been not turning me into a joke in your parents' yard. She folded her arms like armor. You're making me the villain. I'm making me safe. The words surprised even me with how plain they felt. No heat, no twist, no win. Just a man drawing the circle he should have drawn sooner. She searched my face for a crack and didn't find one. Protection isn't manipulation, I said. It's finally choosing me. And the part of me that used to flinch didn't move. I packed the next evening. Not everything. Just what I needed to breathe. Boots, work shirts, the coffee maker that never judged me for late nights. A box of photographs I didn't have the heart to look at. Papers, tools, the simple stuff that makes a man's day hold. Public storage sat off the frontage road, orange doors lined up like teeth. I slid the gate with the plastic card, the reader beeped, bored and official. Unit C-17, steel lock new enough to shine. I rolled the door up and the space yawned back. Cold, concrete, honest. I stacked my life in rectangles, labeled the boxes like I was keeping score. Clothes, books, tax, winter. It wasn't grief, it wasn't triumph. It was work. Sober, necessary, mine. Outside, Texas had that big sky that makes you tell the truth. The air smelled like dust and diesel. Somewhere a train pushed through the dark, a long, low horn you feel in your ribs. I stood there a minute, hand on the rope, breathing like a man who finally found the off switch. No speeches, no last looks, just a nod to the things that served me and the things that didn't. Then I pulled. The corrugated metal came down smooth, loud, final. The door shut. The echo held. And something heavy inside me sat down and stayed quiet. The morning after storage, I opened my laptop like a man opening a toolbox. No drama, just work. I sent the email to the mediator. Dates that fit, documents attached, a short line that said I was available and ready. 10 minutes later, confirmation hit my inbox. Tuesday, 10 a.m., Travis County. The kind of email that feels like a door with a lock you can finally turn. I looped in my attorney. Sarah replied in under 5 minutes. Bullet points, no fluff. Bring originals. Prepare a summary. Don't argue feelings. Present facts. It read like a calm hand on the shoulder. I made a checklist the way I balance sheets. IDs, statements, mortgage history, loan payments, screenshots with timestamps, a one-page breakdown even a stranger could follow. I printed, punched, filed. The printer hummed, the binder filled. My breathing evened out. Control isn't loud. It's the weight of a clean stack you can lay on a table without apology. I wasn't planning a fight. I was building a case for peace. When the last tab snapped into place, I said it out loud just to hear it land. Evidence, timeline, boundaries. 3 nails in the frame, enough to hold, enough to stop the house from leaning, enough to keep me standing straight when the wind picks up. The night before I printed the binder, I couldn't sleep. The house hummed the way it does when everything's plugged in but nothing's alive. I sat at the kitchen table under one bulb, laptop open, pages waiting. The clock ticked like it was timing a confession. The cursor blinked on a blank screen. 1 beat, 2. I started typing. Dates, payments, everything I'd carried in silence. Each entry felt like a nail driven straight, a soundless kind of closure. Outside, rain hit the porch light, thin and silver. The reflection cut across my face, half shadow, half resolve. I paused once, hand on the mouse, watching my own reflection in the black glass of the window. The man looking back didn't seem angry, just exact. That's when I reached for the printer switch. The hum started low, steady, almost like breath. Page after page slid out warm, lined with proof. In that moment, I realized something simple. You don't have to shout when you finally have evidence. You just print. The light flickered once before I shut it off. Half the room in dark, half in truth. And for the first time in months, I liked the man sitting in the shadow. By lunch, my phone looked like a fire alarm. 21 missed calls. Voicemail full. Texts stacking. We can fix this. You're overreacting. Call me. Please. I watched the bubbles try to form another paragraph and fade. I didn't answer. I wasn't angry. I was finished being drafted as emergency services for a fire I didn't start. She called again, the same ringtone I used to like. I let it run out. She followed with a photo from our wedding, sunset, smiles, promises we meant back then. I set the phone face down, then picked it back up and muted the thread. Muting isn't hate, it's triage. Another text, you're punishing me. I typed and deleted, then kept it simple. I'm protecting myself. Dots. Nothing. The next one tried the old hook. We can fix this if you just try. I stared at the words until they blurred. In our marriage, fix meant I pay, I swallow, I patch, I pretend. I pictured the toolbox again, only this time I closed it and put it back on the shelf. I sent the only line that fit, plain as a wrench. I'm not your repairman. No insult, no sermon, just truth with a flat edge. She didn't reply. The quiet that followed felt like a room that finally stopped leaking. She showed up at my office late afternoon, the dress from our 3rd anniversary hugging her like a memory she wanted me to wear. Same perfume, clean, sharp, the kind that used to mean home. The receptionist buzzed. I told them to send her in. She closed the door like we were about to start over. "We need to talk," she said, eyes bright, voice too steady. "We are," I answered, staying seated. I wasn't trying to be cruel. I was keeping my feet under me. She scanned the framed certificates on my wall like they might vote her way. "You blindsided me," she said. "My family, my reputation. This isn't you." I shrugged once. "This is me after the jokes and the DMs and the public regret." She stepped closer. "If we just slow down, if we breathe, we can put this back together." I let the quiet count out beats, air vent humming, pen cap clicking once in my hand, heart steady. There's a kind of mercy in clarity. It doesn't argue, it just stands. "Here's what I can give you," I said, looking at the clock. "Not another year, not another month of pretending. I'll give you honesty." She held my eyes like a diver holding air. 5 minutes. The room shrank to those 2 words. She nodded, and for the first time in days, listened. She started fast, like speed could outrun truth. "I messed up. I was angry. I said things I didn't mean. We can see someone. I'll try harder. I lifted a hand. "When's the last time you thanked me for anything without me pointing it out first?" Silence. The AC kept its low growl, the kind that fills a room when people stop pretending. Her eyes flicked to the floor, then back up, red around the rims, not the good kind of red. "I appreciate you," she whispered. "That's not what I asked." I leaned back. "When did you ask how my day was and listen for the answer? When did you reach for me without wanting something? When did you defend me when your cousin made me the punchline?" Her mouth opened, closed. She reached for the old script. "We've both been under pressure." "Pressure doesn't make contempt," I said. "Character does." A long minute passed in 10 seconds. She wiped her cheek, angry at the tear for showing up. "I don't want to lose you." "You don't want to lose what I do," I said. "The bills paid, the steady weekends, the quiet you stand on without thinking who built it." "That's not fair." "It's accurate." I let it land because it needed to. Then I gave her the line that unlocked the whole thing. "You miss security, not me." "I want peace," I said. "Not the performance of being okay, the real thing." She flinched like I'd called her a name. "You're cruel." "I'm practical." I tapped the pen once against the desk. The click sounded louder than it should. "Cruel is keeping a man in a life that guts him and calling it love." She stepped back, just half a foot, like space could fix it. "You're throwing away everything we built." "We didn't build the same thing," I said. "I built a home. You built a stage. I showed up to live. You showed up to perform." Her lips thinned. "You talk like I never tried." "You did, when eyes were on you. You were kind in public and contemptuous in private. I keep books for a living. I know the difference between cash and display." She reached for my wrist. I pulled the pen back and set it down. Calm, square, final. "What do you want me to do?" she asked, voice small. "Tell the truth, then let it stand." "The truth is, I still love you." I nodded once. "Maybe, but love without respect is theater." The room went quiet long enough for both of us to hear the verdict neither one said out loud. I ended it with a line even I needed to hear. Peace over performance. And the second I said it, I knew I was done auditioning for my own life. Mediation day smelled like coffee and copier toner, polished floors, quiet voices, a water cooler burping in the corner. Pratt, her lawyer, had that smooth country club confidence, the kind that says the verdict is a handshake away. He nodded at me like we were old friends. We weren't. Sarah, my attorney, gave me a small, cold smile that meant we're ready. She doesn't waste adjectives. That's why I hired her. We sat on a padded bench outside conference room B. I breathed through my nose and felt the binder's weight on my lap. Tabs, originals, timelines, the kind of order that lets a man sit up straight. Emily arrived last, eyes rimmed, makeup precise, posture set to innocent but strong. She didn't look at me. Fine. A clerk opened the door. Collins versus Collins? We stood. Inside, a long table, a clock, a woman from the county with patient eyes. She asked us to sit, to try for calm. Pratt went first, voice warm as a fireplace. My client seeks an equitable division. She supported this marriage in countless ways. He smiled at the mediator. We're confident we can reach a fair outcome. Sarah slid my binder forward and uncapped a pen. No drama, just the sound of a machine starting. I met the mediator's eyes and nodded toward the stack. Let's review. 2 words. A door opening. And the last moment before facts start speaking for themselves. Sarah slid the binder open and let the pages breathe. First came the bank statements. Each month a clean line of ink, deposits and outflows. The story numbers tell when people stop listening. Then the mortgage list. Every payment I made, every extra principal I threw at it when the clinic checks were thin. Student loans with my name on the memo line, the ones that kept her from drowning while she learned to save other people. Next, the contribution spreadsheet, columns tight as fence boards, groceries, utilities, car insurance, phone, gas, not guesses, receipts, dates, amounts. I watched the mediator's eyes track down the columns like a level-finding plumb. Sarah dropped in photos. Home Depot runs, fertilizer bags, a leaky faucet fixed at midnight, HOA fines I paid before they bit. Pratt tried to speak. Sarah turned another tab. The sound of pages filled the room, soft, relentless, sop, 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 until the table was more paper than wood. It wasn't anger, it was weight, the kind that makes chairs shift and confidence sit up straight. Emily went still, hands folded to keep from fidgeting. The clock clicked forward, unbothered. Numbers don't care who smiles nicest. No speeches, no heat. Just proof laid flat, edge to edge. The paper did what yelling never could. It covered the table and wouldn't move. The mediator, Ms. Alvarez, lifted a page by its corner, then another. Her voice had the calm of someone who's seen every version of this. These are meticulous. I nodded. Occupational hazard. I work with ledgers. You learn early. Feelings sway, totals don't. Alvarez looked at the student loan statements again, the mortgage extras, the timeline of dates I'd typed in 12-point font. She glanced at Emily, who was suddenly very interested in her thumbnail. Pratt broke his pen cap and reached for another, scribbling a note he didn't want to write. The second hand on the wall clock stepped forward. Tick. The room got small around the facts. Sarah asked the questions that don't need adjectives. Who paid this? On what date? With which account? Pratt started answering for his client. Alvarez raised a palm and waited for Emily. Her voice came out thin. Sarah slid the last divider over. And for clarity, the duration of documentation? I kept my eyes on the mediator. 2 years of records. Not a threat, not a flex, just a measurement. Alvarez let out a quiet breath, the kind people release when the picture finally comes into focus. Pratt's confidence lost a shade. Emily stared at the table like truth might look away first. Credibility doesn't shout, it stacks, page by page until the story can't wobble. Pratt cleared his throat, ready to reframe. My client contributed in non-financial ways. Emotional support, partnership. He said the word like it could pay bills. I kept my voice flat. You want the whole picture? Put this in it. I named what everyone had been stepping around. The study partner, the DMs that went warm after midnight, the months I slept beside a stranger and called it marriage. Pratt blinked. That wasn't in his notes. He looked at Emily. She moved fast. We worked through that, she said, chin up, voice clean. We healed. The room paused, listening for the part that made it true. It didn't arrive. I let the silence do its job, then set the correction down like a level on a warped board. "No," I said. "I worked through it." The flip landed harder than a shout. The clock ticked. Pratt shifted in his chair. Alvarez watched the space between us the way a nurse watches a monitor. Emily's eyes flickered. Defiance, then shame, then the flat stare people use when they run out of script. "We," she tried again, softer. "We." I said. Just that. One letter. A pronoun pulling a load it carried for years. The room stayed quiet, and for once it wasn't hostile. It was honest. A story stops wobbling when you tell it without the word that doesn't belong. Pratt asked for 5 minutes. Alvarez nodded. We stepped into the hall. Through the glass, they angled close. Hands, whispers, a face going red then pale. He wasn't smiling now. He was calculating. She wasn't performing now. She was cornered by math and memory. 5 minutes stretched just long enough to change weather. When we filed back in, Pratt's voice had lost its fireplace warmth. "Perhaps," he said carefully, "we can discuss a more reasonable division." Sarah didn't blink. "Define reasonable." He adjusted a page that didn't need adjusting. "She keeps the house but refinances to buy out his equity. Each party retains their own retirement accounts. No claim on premarital funds. A credit to Mr. Collins for educational debt paid. Clean split on movable assets." It wasn't magnanimous. It wasn't. It was gravity finally noticed. Alvarez looked to me. I nodded once. The binder had already made the argument. Emily stared at the table, the fight gone out of her posture. I could almost hear the old lines knocking, asking to be said. She let them pass. Good. Pratt folded his hands like a man closing shop. "We believe this reflects reality." Sarah turned to me. I answered the only way I needed. "Now we're reasonable." 3 words, and the air changed. Not victory. Balance. The first time in years the ground didn't tilt under my feet. The terms hit the table in plain English. She keeps the house, but refinances and buys out my equity. Each keeps our own 401k. No reach back into premarital funds. A credit to me for the tuition, the loans, the years I carried the weight while she climbed. Movables split clean. No theatrics. Just math. The mediator read them once, then again. Pratt cleared his throat like the paper was dry. Sarah checked the figures, tapped the totals with her pen, 1, 2, 3, then slid the signature pages forward. I didn't feel triumph, just alignment, like a crooked picture finally straight. Emily signed first, jaw tight. Her name looked pretty and angry. She didn't look up. Pratt rotated the last page to face me. The room was so quiet I could hear the cheap clock trying to keep up. I took the pen. No shaking, no second thoughts. A line across a line, the way roofers finish a shingle run. Clean. Final. The pen tip clicked against the hardboard when I set it down. That sound carried more mercy than any apology we never got to. No parade, no applause, just ink that doesn't blink. The mediator gathered the stack like a nurse tidying after bad news. I stood, lighter by a weight nobody else could see. The last signature isn't a victory, it's a release. The hallway smelled like paper and lemon cleaner. We walked side by side without touching, 2 people untying a knot that used to be a life. At the elevator, she finally looked at me. "You took my best years," she said. Not a scream, a verdict she wanted to stick. I let it hang a second so the words could hear themselves. "I got some years," I said. "Best is debatable." She blinked. The line didn't bounce off like she expected. The doors slid open with that tired bell most county buildings share. We stepped forward, then stopped. 1 foot on bright tile, 1 on dull carpet, exactly where we'd been living for too long. "I loved you," she said, softer now. "I loved you too." I didn't dress it up. But love without respect is just noise. Her mouth pressed into a line. There were a dozen old scripts she could have grabbed. We can try. We can reset. We can... But the binder in that room had already answered. Some arguments don't need a closing statement. The elevator yawned. I stepped in. She didn't. Maybe she couldn't. Maybe she finally understood what I'd been saying since the backyard. I nodded once. No malice, no promise. Just goodbye the way a man says it when he's out of excuses. The doors met in the middle and sealed the silence, and for the first time in years, I didn't wish they'd reopen. I slid into the F-150 and let the door thud shut. Afternoon sun came in sideways, laying a warm stripe across my forearms on the wheel. I turned the radio down to where the singer sounded like he was talking to himself. A steel guitar, no words I needed. The kind of quiet that feels earned. Traffic rolled slow, but my chest didn't. The tight band I'd been wearing for years loosened a notch. I watched the city drift by, pawn shops, a tire place, a kid on a BMX cutting through heat. Ordinary life carrying on, uninterested in courtroom endings. The wheel felt lighter than it had any right to. My hands sat easy at 10 and 2, not squeezing, just steering. I replayed the day, then the month, then the years. Not to punish myself, to tell the truth. There's a difference. I had waited for signs, for decent behavior to stick, for gratitude to grow legs. It never did. I had waited for hope like a paycheck that wasn't coming. A red light held me. In the glass I caught my face, tired, sure, but clear. Not a man who won. A man who stopped lying to himself. I said it out loud so it couldn't get slippery later. The hardest part was admitting I waited too long. The light turned green. I drove, and for once, it felt like forward. The phone buzzed halfway home. Frank Carter on the screen. I let it ring once more than polite, then picked up. His voice came through rough like an old rope. Mark. Hey, Frank. I should have seen it, he said. No throat clearing, no warm-up. I should have shut it down the first time she took a cheap shot and called it humor. I leaned into the seat and let him talk. He wasn't defending her. He wasn't attacking me. He was standing in the space where men admit they missed something. I'm sorry, he said. I'm sorry for my house. I'm sorry for my name. You carried more than I knew. Thank you, I said. 2 words that landed heavier than they sound. He took a breath I could hear. I raised her to be better. Maybe I failed. You raised her to have chances, I said. What people do with chances is on them. There was a quiet that didn't ache. He let it sit a moment. If you need help moving, call me. If anyone gives you trouble, call me. The old rope in his voice pulled tight. For what it's worth, son, you're a good man, Mark. I swallowed. I'm trying to be. You are, he said. Then softer. I'm proud of how you handled it. We didn't say goodbye. We just let the call end clean, like men do when there's nothing left to add. By evening, my phone was a porch light for apologies. A text from her grandmother came first. Short, careful, kind. I'm sorry, dear. I didn't see what was right in front of me. May your days be peaceful. I stared at the words a little longer than I needed to. Some grace lands late and still counts. Then Lindsay. I took the story down. I'm sorry I filmed. Everyone's seen it in the family chat. She added a broken heart emoji like a bandage that doesn't stick. You didn't deserve that. I typed back, it's okay. 2 small words that meant, I'm done fighting people who finally heard what I've been hearing. She wrote again, I should have stopped it sooner. I didn't answer. Not out of spite, out of finish. A cousin pinged, an aunt. Frank sent a thumbs up he didn't need to explain. The phone kept lighting like a steady rain, then slowed to a drizzle, then quit. I opened the last message again, the grandmother's blessing, then closed the thread and slid the notifications off like a man turning out a room after guests leave. Some stories need quiet. Mine needed witnesses. I said it once, for me, for the record. Truth needed witnesses. And with that, the house felt less crowded, even with no one in it. HEB on a Tuesday runs on white light and tired feet. I stopped for pasta and coffee, the kind of list that makes a life. The refrigerated hum covered a lot of thoughts. Then I saw her. Emily stood in the pasta aisle holding a bargain brand jar like it might explain something. Hair pulled back, makeup working overtime. She looked smaller under that grocery store sun. Hi, she said. Not sharp, not proud. Just a word with the air let out. Hey. I reached for a box of penne and put it in the cart. Ordinary is a mercy when you've lived in noise. How are you? She asked. I thought about easy answers and chose the true one. I'm peaceful. She blinked, like the word stung. Her eyes went to my cart. Coffee, sauce, bread, a life in quiet stacks. I heard about the agreement, she said. People are talking. People always talk, I said. They finally listened. She nodded at nothing. I know I didn't appreciate what we had. I didn't hand her a lifeline. I didn't cut her either. I hope you find what you respect, I said. Her fingers tightened on the cheap jar. You look lighter. I am. We stood there in aisle 7, two people who ran the same race and reached different finish lines. I pushed the cart on. The wheels squeaked once, then went smooth. She stared at the label like it might blink first. I ruined the best thing I ever had, she said, voice thin, knuckles white around the jar. I didn't rush to fill the space. A shopper pushed a cart by, glanced, steered wide. Trouble recognizes trouble. I kept my hands on the cart handle, steady as a rail. You didn't ruin it, I said. You traded it for validation. The word hit the tile between us like a dropped wrench. Heavy, honest, no polish. She flinched, like it rang in her bones. We both knew what it meant. Late-night DMs, applause from people who don't show up when the tire blows, the high of being admired by strangers while the man who knows your worst keeps paying the light bill. Tears came hard and fast. Not the kind that move me anymore, the kind that show up when the crowd goes home. A clerk turned down a side aisle. A kid asked for cereal. Life stayed regular, which somehow made it clearer. I didn't mean to, she whispered. Maybe not, I said, but meaning doesn't change math. She nodded like the truth hurt her teeth. I didn't gloat. I didn't lecture. I kept the cart still and the tone level. Some words unlock a story. That one closed ours. Validation. And there wasn't anything left to bargain with. Did I lose you? She asked, mascara gathering at the edge like a bad storm. I met her eyes because that's what you do when the last answer matters. You didn't lose me, I said. You abandoned me, inch by inch. She sucked in air, a sound like paper tearing. I didn't stack examples. I didn't need to. We both knew the inches. Holidays with jokes that cut, dinners where the phone got more eye contact than I did, weekends where girls' night meant I kept the house warm for a ghost. Inch by inch, I said, letting the rhythm do what arguments can't. Day by day. Her throat worked around a word she never found. The aisle didn't pause for us. A scanner beeped. The air smelled like coffee and bleach. Ordinary mercy again. I don't know how to live with that, she said. You'll learn, I answered. Not cruel, just true. Most of us learn eventually, some of us sooner. She reached like she might touch my sleeve, then let her hand fall. Is there any chance? No. The word didn't slam. It settled. Final, without flair. I nudged the cart forward. Take care of yourself, I said, because I meant it. I rolled past the end cap and turned left. The wheels squeaked once, then didn't. Behind me, the aisle kept doing what aisles do, holding what people choose and what they put back. I sat in the truck outside the store, engine ticking as it cooled, and scrolled to a name that didn't make my stomach brace. Isabella picked up on the second ring. Her voice carries heat the way a porch light carries evening. Soft, steady, enough. Hey, she said. How's your day? Complicated, I answered, and didn't have to translate the rest. You coming by tomorrow? I can. Anything you want for dinner? She laughed, the easy kind. Surprise me. I trust your judgment. 2 words. That's all it took for something in my chest to unclench. I trust. Not I deserve. Not you owe me. A statement with no hooks, no bill coming due, then versus now in one clean line. I didn't need a speech to feel the difference. My shoulders dropped like they'd been holding a door against the wind for years. What about Saturday? She asked. There's a flea market on Burnett. We could walk, get coffee, pretend we don't have jobs. We could do that, I said, and meant it. Drive safe, she added, like a habit she wants to keep. I will. We lingered, not because we were afraid to hang up, but because neither of us needed to rush. When I ended the call, I sat still another beat, smiling at my own steering wheel. 2 words echoing in an empty cab. I trust. Sometimes healing sounds that small and that exact. Back home, the kitchen met me halfway. I chopped onions, she stirred sauce. No speech, no edge, just two people moving around each other without bumping. The knife had that clean tap on the board that makes sense of a day. She tasted with the back of a spoon and grinned. "More salt," she said. I nodded and added a pinch like it mattered, because now it did. We talked weekend, cheap antiques, good coffee, no plans we couldn't break. She told me a story about a kid at school who finally read a full page without stopping. I told her the truck needs tires before winter. Normal talk, the kind that isn't filler when respect lays the floor. She set plates. I lit a candle because the drawer had a lighter sitting there asking to be used. We ate slow. Not to make it special. To let ordinary have its turn. When the dishes were done, she leaned on the counter and looked at me like a decision she didn't have to justify. "You're quiet," she said. "I'm listening," I told her, to her voice, to the house, to the sound of nothing breaking. There's a paradox I didn't understand until now. Peace is loud when you've lived in noise. It hums in the fridge, in the laugh that isn't forced, in the way a door closes without a slam. I stood in it, grateful, like a man who finally heard himself think. There's a kind of freedom that costs more than money. It doesn't show up with balloons. It shows up with quiet mornings, a steady pulse, and a house that doesn't argue back. I used to think walking away was quitting. Turns out the hardest freedom is telling the truth about what you stayed for, and why you won't anymore. I'm grateful for the lesson, even if it came with a bill. It taught me that peace isn't a luxury, it's a boundary. That love without respect is theater. That forgiveness, given to the wrong pattern, becomes a leash. I'm not interested in revenge. Living well is loud enough. Good coffee, paid bills. A woman who says thank you and means it. A man who looks in the mirror and doesn't look away. I closed the book without setting it on fire. Some stories don't need flames. They need final pages. So here's mine. A real man doesn't win someone back. He wins himself back. If you're standing where I stood, between pride and peace, choose the one that lets you sleep. Choose the one that doesn't need defending. And if this hit you where you live, tell me below. Share your line in the sand. Subscribe so you don't miss what's next. We'll walk the rest of this road together, quietly, steadily, without apology. Past behind, respect intact, forward at last.